Hello and welcome to chapter 11. We are now finished with chapter 10, which is all about area, and we're moving on to three-dimensional figures, and they will have surface area and volume will be the big ideas we're working on. So the first thing we need to look at is some of our vocabulary, and I want to show and name some 3D figures for you. So in this first lesson today, I want to talk about prisms and pyramids and solid figures. So actually we're starting here and then we'll break it down into two different types, the prisms and the pyramids. So if we look at your vocabulary pages here, solid figure, I'm going to flip that over and you can see here that a solid figure is three-dimensional and it has length, width, and height. And here's some different examples: a cone, a pyramid, a sphere, a cylinder, rectangular prism. And I'm going to show you some bigger, larger, like plastic ones of these and talk about the different pieces of them. Okay, and then let's see, we want to talk about a prism. And a prism is a solid figure that has two congruent polygon shaped bases and other faces that are all rectangles. So I'm going to pull out some prisms here and we're going to talk about those first. All right, we're back to talk about prisms. So what I have underneath here, I'm going to slide it around, is a whole lot of different types of prisms. So prisms are solid figure, 3-dimension, and they have two congruent bases. They can be any type of polygon. So right here, I have a hexagonal prism because the two bases, 1, 2, are hexagons. This is actually a cube, but I could call that a square prism because the top and the bottom, the bases, are squares. Get that out of the way. Right here is a triangular prism because the bases, 2 are triangles. And then here's actually another version of a tiny one, all right, of a triangular prism. So when you have the two polygons are congruent bases, then all the rest of the sides are rectangles of some kind, and that's called the face. Okay, so if I took this, I'm going to get these guys all out of the way. If I took this triangular prism, triangular base, and then what you might call the sides are what we call the faces, the lateral faces. And those are all rectangles. So this flat surface, if you can see there, okay, this whole flat surface is a face, a lateral face. Then I call my intersection of bases and faces edges. Okay, so the line that would make is my edge. And then the points where edges all come together, we would call a vertex, or plural would be vertices. Okay, so prisms, two polygon bases. Everything else, all the faces are rectangles. All right, or in this case, rectangle is a square, so they can be squares. All right, so let's take again a look at that hexagon, hexagonal prism, hexagon base, they put a little hole in the one side, and then as you can see, all the rest of these lateral faces are rectangles of some sort. All right, and here's a rectangular prism. So rectangle for the base, and all my faces are some kind of a rectangle. Now I could lay it this way and call, actually it's a square and a square, my bases, but I still have rectangular faces. All right, now I want to contrast my prism with a pyramid. So if you look at your vocabulary, you don't have to pull it out now, but you know you have to know it later in the before we get into the chapter to do a test on it. A pyramid is a solid figure with a polygon base. Now, one base. And all their faces are triangles that meet at a common vertex. All right, so as you can see, I have a base here. Looks like it's either rectangle or square. And then all my faces are now triangles, as opposed to, again, my prism, all those faces were rectangles. So let's take a look at some in real life. I don't have too many examples here with my blue plastic figures to show you, but I do have two. So this one, and you name them by their base. And that's actually, I don't know if I said that with the prisms, same thing. You name them first with their base. So this is a triangular base. That's what it's going to sit on. And then all of the faces here are triangles, and they come up to meet at one vertex. On the other hand, and this one usually falls apart, as you can see there, it's actually kind of nice to see. So here I have a square, so that's my square base, and then as you can see, I have triangles for all my faces, and they come together in one vertex. So this would be called a square pyramid. This would be a triangular pyramid because you name them by their base. Okay. One quick review, I wanted to make sure. So here I have a triangular prism. One of my bases fell off. That happens with these, but it's nice to see that shape. Lay it in there if I can. So bases, 1, 2 are triangles. So triangular prism because the sides are rectangles. This triangular pyramid because the side faces are triangles come together in one point, my vertex. So if you take a look at your book, page 597, which is lesson 11.1, you can see that definition of a solid figure, three-dimensional figure because it has 3 dimensions, length, width, and height. Solid figures can be identified by the shapes of their bases and the number of bases and the shapes of their lateral faces. So what I was trying to show you with the blue figures over there, this would be a triangular prism. So triangular base here on top, triangular base there on the bottom, and then rectangular lateral faces. You can see they're pointing to the edge where your two faces meet would be the line, and where those edges, the lines kind of come together, I would have my vertex. You need to be familiar with all of those vocabulary words. All right, so talking a little bit more about nets. I printed a net out, and sorry for whatever reason when it printed, it didn't give the color edge of the green there, and down here it didn't get my yellow, so I filled it in with markers. At first I couldn't find a good yellow, it came out orange, but you get this idea here. So I'm going to pick up my camera here, okay? And so when you look down there, you can see all the colored regions, and I like that it's on a grid, boxes. This is a net of a rectangular prism. So I'm going to cut this out in a second, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to show you, we're going to fold it together and show you how it would make a rectangular prism. All right, I'm back, and it's all cut out. All right, as you can see, I can move this around different ways, but I just cut off all the extra pieces on that. Now what I'm going to do, trying to keep myself under this camera here, I'm going to come and I got to find those big, bold black lines there, and I'm going to fold on that. All right, so right there, I'm going to crease it real well, got a good crease. Then I need to come up here to this black line, and I'm going to fold that really well. And then I'm going to come to my green panels here. I'm going to fold that right there on the black line. Turn it around, my opposite green panel right there. And then I have one more to do. I need to do this one here, the blue panel. All right, so I'm going to fold that nice and crisp. All right, so now, as you can see, I still had, this was my 2D representation as a net. And now that it's folded, I can take that, bring my sides up, bring everything together. And as you can see, I'll go get some tape in a second, but I want to show you without it. As you can see, that net, I could tape it together to make my 3D representation in paper of my rectangular prism. All right, I'm going to grab some tape quick so I can put that together for you a little bit, but let's take it apart one more time. All right, so apart, I'll put it together in a second with tape. All right, I am back with my taped together. It's kind of sad looking, but taped together rectangular prism. All right, so rectangle base for my yellow, flip it over, rectangle base, and then I would have my 4 lateral faces that are also rectangles. Now I could change that. I could call blue base, and everybody else the lateral faces. That's one thing about the rectangular prisms is you can actually change which 2 are your bases. So I think all I'm going to have to do today is with, whether it's Mr. Bloss, Mrs. Boyle, myself, we have a bunch of papers with nets on them. We're going to have you cut them out and fold them and just get a feel for how these 2-dimensional figures can be put together into 3D figures. That's all we're going to do for today. See you in a bit.